Thank you, Kent. So, yeah, we are very excited to announce integration environment, uh, integration application, and business process tracking that Kent will cover in detail. Um, Little bit history on this. Like we've heard from customers for a very long time that they love the flexibility that Azure provides in when it comes to integration, where they can choose the services that they want, and then they can choose it at the pace that they want to, and pay only for what they are consuming. So they love that. But the downside is that, compared to the classical integration products that our customers are coming from, they miss that uh, feeling when using Azure integration services. And in some cases, when it comes to management and monitoring experiences, the experience was very siloed across the services. So that's the problem that we are trying to solve. And our vision basically here is to provide you this single pane management monitoring experience that spans across the entire AIS portfolio. And towards that vision, this is our first step where we are introducing integration environment, which provides you this landing zone for your AIS for Azure integration services, where you can build management experiences, where you can bring these things together and get a very unified experience, a cohesive experience across all these services. Integration environment comes with a lot of flexibility in how you want to model it. So it's up to your business needs on how you want to have integration environment. For example, you can have one based on your development environment like dev test prod, or you can map this entity to your business teams or your business organizations within your company. uh, within within integration environment, now then we are adding another concept, which is integration application, which basically allows you to group your pre-deployed AIS components into a unit, and use that unit as your management entity. So the whole idea here is that, again, like when you have the landing zone, how do you then bring your business context of the application into this model? So with this, you should be able to group these entities together. For example, you could have a payroll application or an order processing or a shipment notification application. So the whole idea is for you to be able to bring your business context into integration environment through the applications. And for in the first release, we are supporting logic apps, service bus entities like queues and topics, and API management APIs, which you can group together and create this unit. And with that, with integration environment and application, the first problem that we have tackled, we decided to solve is business process tracking. And I'll pass on to Ken to cover that in more detail.
All right, thanks, Divya. So let's talk a little bit about business process tracking. So for folks that might come from a BizTalk background, there's a capability called BAM, Business Activity Monitoring. And so what we're trying to do here is we're going to try to solve the same type of problem. We're calling it a different name. It is a completely different implementation based on different underlying technology. But in terms of trying to solve those core business problems, this is basically our successor to BAM. Now, we do envision a fusion dev approach to building out business process tracking. And what that means is that we do want to involve the business subject matter expert to get involved in defining the business process. And naturally, these are going to be the same people that are consuming the outputs of business process tracking itself. And we'll get into this in a live demo, but what you see on screen is our business process designer, where a business subject matter expert, or maybe it's a business analyst or an integration architect, would go ahead and define the conceptual business process by adding stages. Now, for each stage, we want to be able to go ahead and identify the data properties that we might be interested in. So what we've got here is a power outage scenario. There's various stages to that power outage, like creating a ticket, creating a work order, dispatching the work order, having a technician on site. And for each of these stages, we want to go ahead and identify data properties that are meaningful to the business and have those exposed. And so this is where we envision a business analyst or business subject matter expert go ahead and defining these various stages and their related properties. But now we run into the situation where we've got an implementation. We have logic apps in place. We now need to be able to go ahead and identify where we can go ahead and collect this data. So for the stage that we're currently on, which is the ticket created stage, we know that we can go ahead and find this information inside of this CPL work order management logic app, and then within this customer service ticket created workflow. And so this would allow us to then identify where in the technical solution we can retrieve this information. Now we've taken it one step further by adding this link. And what this link is going to do is it's going to allow us to load a read-only version of the logic app, the workflow itself. And we can use this information to go ahead and identify where in the workflow we will go ahead and collect this information. And we do support the token picker. So if you've built a logic app, you can use this feature. And then what we'll also ask you to do is go ahead and identify at what point of the workflow can we say that this stage is complete. And it's at this stage that we'll go ahead and we'll collect this information and we'll publish it to the backend data store. Now, in this case, our backend data store is Azure Data Explorer. When you go ahead and create a new application, we're going to ask you to bring your ADX instance. So basically select it from a series of dropdowns, and then we'll wire that up with inside your logic app and publish data to it. So you'd go ahead and do this for all of the various stages and subsequently deploy the business process. Underneath the hood, we're going to create tracking profiles for any of the logic apps that are participating in the business process itself. And when the logic apps run, we're going to go ahead and emit that data pretty quickly. It's almost instantaneous, and we're pretty pumped about sort of the current performance. And so we're definitely interested in feedback on that. Now, once the transactions start to be collected, we do provide a transactions view that's going to go ahead and list all of the various transactions that have been, involved in this integrated solution. And what's a key concept here is a business identifier. As you're creating these various stages and these data properties, we're going to ask you to also map a business identifier. So this is generally something that uniquely identifies the transaction. So that could be like a case number in this case, a ticket number, an order number. And that's how we're going to go ahead and correlate all of these different events. Now, the other thing that we do here is we will overlay that conceptual business process that was defined earlier with your actual transactional data here. And so that's where you can see this image, this visual, where we can see all of the various durations for which those stages took place. So certainly if you've got longer business processes, maybe they involve approvals, and you're trying to understand why is it taking so long for this business process to take place, we're going to actually give you that insight and allow you to understand where those bottlenecks exist. Now, the other interesting thing is that because we've chosen ADX, not only is it a reliable and durable data store for us, but it also allows for a lot of extensibility. So this is our initial experience. Certainly, we want to give you the opportunity to extend this and customize it. And through the use of either Azure Monitor workbooks or even Power BI, you can go ahead and consume this information because it is coming from your ADX instance. So that was a very deliberate design decision on our part. So just in terms of scope, before we get into the demo itself, our goals, the goals are really around involving the business user, being able to extract key business data and make it available to stakeholders that are interested in this information. What we're not trying to build here is the Uber operational support tool. So like this is not the tool to go ahead and to do message body tracking, right? We've already solved that problem. Could there be opportunities to do some sort of deep link integration in the future? Perhaps, but we are very much focused on like the business persona in this case. So let's get out of slides and let's jump right into a live demo. So let's just head over to the Azure portal. And as Divya mentioned earlier, we do have environments, integration environments. And so here's an example of that integration environment. The environment itself is going to include applications that you go ahead and you model inside of the experience itself. Let me just do a quick refresh here. Okay, I think my token had expired there. So we've got, in this case, 3 different applications that have been configured. We can see the various business processes that do exist. If you were at the Integrate event this past June, you also saw application monitoring. That is something that is still very much part of our roadmap. It was just one of those things where we did have to prioritize some features in order to hit this Ignite timeframe. So do look for more opportunities in that space. So I've got my applications. I've got one here called a customer service power outage. And as part of this particular application, I'm going to have multiple resources that play a role inside of here. So I've got multiple logic apps. These logic apps include, one or more workflows. We also have queues and APIs that are in the mix as well. And certainly when we get into application monitoring, that experience becomes even far more valuable. Now what we can jump to is our business processes. And what we've got, I've got kind of 3 different versions that are being worked on here. We can see I've got one that's been deployed and it's available for use. And then I also have the ability to go ahead and view those transactions. But let's take a look at a business process that's in flight. And so here I've gone ahead and I've created the various stages. I've gone ahead and added properties. I can go ahead and determine the data type for those properties. And I go ahead and continue to model that, throughout the business process. Now, one thing you might be asking is, okay, this looks like very sequential, but my business process has conditions or my business process has concurrency. How do you sort of deal with that? Well, we do offer parallelism. So what we can do is go ahead and add a parallel stage and go ahead and just add that. And then we can further model this out. So we certainly have the ability to support more complicated use cases as well. So that's something just to be aware of. Now, we talked about, the business subject matter expert, initially performing these different actions. Now, the question is, okay, well, how do I go ahead and sort of include the developer? Because the developer is the one that's built the solution. They're the ones that are going to know where are the logic apps and the workflows where I can go ahead and collect this information. And so that's where you can go ahead and just click on the show data source. Here you can go ahead and select from a logic app that's been configured inside of your application. So here I've got 2 logic apps and I've got a particular workflow that I want to go ahead and select. Once I've got that in place, I can then go ahead and click on this link. And this is going to bring in a read-only version of the designer. And this will then allow me to choose at what point in the process do I want to emit the data, and then where am I going to go ahead and get that data from? So this is the token experience that you've seen and used previously, and you can go ahead and use that. We also do support functions as well. So if you need to do any sort of string manipulation or concatenation or formatting, certainly you would have the ability to go ahead and do that here as well. Now, we talked about the business ID, and so this is something that you do need to provide at each stage. This is going to allow us to correlate that information. And same idea is I need to be able to go ahead and find that from within the logic app. And when I go ahead and emit that data, that's where this information can all line up from that perspective. So just to sort of ground ourselves in a real world demo, we've got a scenario here inspired. Oh, why does it do this? By one of our customers. And they're a utility company. And in this case, we're using the Microsoft Contoso version of it, City Power and Light. And this utility, this power utility, obviously offers customer service to their customers. And here we've got Lydia, who is a customer of City Power and Light. And so she's encountered a power outage at her home and would like to report it to City Light and Power. Now, as her internet's down, she'd like to report this issue using her mobile device and preferably through a conversational AI chatbot or what we're now calling copilots. And so once she goes ahead and creates the service ticket, she'd like to be able to check on the status of her ticket through the chatbot as well. And naturally, once the outage is complete, she would like to be able to receive communication about that. So this is what the underlying technical solution looks like. You can see we've got various systems in play here. We've got a CRM that's hosting the chatbot. We have a work order management system that is being used to dispatch orders and collect updates on those orders. We also have processes to deal with communicating back with customers. And it is a very distributed application made up of multiple logic apps, service bus entities, APIs as well. And so that's where we can go ahead and define a conceptual business process that looks kind of like this. Inside of the CRM, we're going to have a ticket creation process. Then we essentially have a handoff over to a work order management system where we're going to run it through the various stages as part of that business process. And across each of these different stages, we're going to go ahead and collect different information from that business process at those stages. And so this is where I think this solution really shines in the sense of when you have multiple systems in place, you're orchestrating a business process across those systems. How do you go ahead and collect key business data across those? And then how do you go ahead and expose that to your business users so that they can actually consume that and ideally, use that information to better manage their business? And so that's really the core of what we're trying to solve here. So with that explanation out of the way, let's head back to the Azure portal. And here we do have that deployed business process. We can go ahead and just click on the View Transactions button here, and we'll just let these transactions load. And here we've got some simple filters around being to filter by like the ticket number, being able to filter based upon a prior range. We have those capabilities. And like I said, we will be enhancing this as we move forward as well. Now, let's go ahead, let's create some data. So here we're at case 1129. We'll head over to our chatbot. And here I'm using Power Virtual Agents, or what's now known as Microsoft Copilot Studio. And I've got that chat experience that's exposed. And this chatbot is going to talk to the CRM and provide the customer service experience. So here I'm acting as Lydia, and I want to log a ticket. So I can say my power is out. And so it's just asking me to confirm, yes, I do have a power outage. And then it just needs some additional information here for me to validate or look up my record. So I'm just going to provide my email address. I'm being asked to validate my site ID. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now I'm being asked to provide some additional details that may have contributed to the power outage. So in this case, I'm going to say, big storm, tree fell, just to keep it brief. Okay, so now a ticket is being created. And here we've got case 1130. Now, earlier in or I guess it just mentions it here. If we want to be able to go ahead and come back and see the status of our ticket, we should be able to issue a statement of ticket lookup. And then we're going to be asked for a ticket number. And here we can see that the status is in a created state. So if we actually head over to the Azure portal, we now see that we've got a case has been created. We can click on it, and we can see that the first two steps are complete. We've got ticket created, and we've got work order created. And if we go ahead and click on into these various stages, we can see the data that was captured at that particular part of the business process. So let's go ahead, let's proceed. And we now are playing the role of a dispatcher who's basically received a ticket and needs to assign a technician to go ahead and to solve that. So here, playing the role of our Powerline technician is going to be the one and only Harold Campos. And we're going to change this to be in a dispatch state. So now we can see that it's the work order status is dispatched. If we come back here and let's head back to the Azure portal and we hit refreshed, we now see that the work order has been dispatched and it's been dispatched to Harold. Oh, I can leave that open. All right, so let's continue on here with the process. So Harold now has picked up the ticket. He's traveled to the site. He's now on site. He's asked to look around for any sort of safety hazards and has noticed a large pet, a large dog, backyard. But Harold, being astute, has brought treats, so the dog is not an issue. So that's good. So he's now on site, and we've now advanced through that part of the business process. The job's now done, so he can go ahead and just indicate that this is complete. And at this point, he can just indicate that he replaced a power pole and can give the material ID for that particular power pole. Go ahead and can click the confirm button. And if we head back over to our chatbot and we do a ticket lookup, and we provide our case, we'll see that it's now complete and your power is restored. If we head back over to our business process here, we will also see that the work order has been complete and the customer communication has also been sent out. So that concludes the demo. I think, I don't know if there's any questions, but I'll go over some frequently asked questions that we do receive about this feature. So one question that we often get is, I see Logic Apps in the mix here. What other sources do you currently support? So as of right now, as of this current public preview, this is very Logic App centric. This is based upon our workflows. We are looking to provide extensibility though, and make this available to other services as well. And so that's where we need your feedback and your scenarios. So do reach out, do even in chat if you want to sort of provide some feedback around what are the services that you'd be interested in having this. That's what we'd love to hear. And that could be Azure Functions, or maybe it's an SDK, that could be a RESTful API. We've heard some people ask about API management. We've also heard some people talk about service bus queues and topics. So, feel free to stack rank them if that makes sense, but we're definitely interested in sort of what are the options there. Another question that we often get is, how do I deploy this through CI/CD? And so for now, once again, in the preview, like we just launched this a week and a half ago, that we are focused, where for now it's in portal, but we are definitely have plans for exposing this through CI/CD. So that is something just to be aware of. And then another FAQ is, what about looping? And that's another area that is on our radar as well, to support the more granular ability to track data inside of a loop itself. I hear someone's come off mute. Is there any questions or?
Yes, we have a number of questions here. The first one I think is from Eitaha and from Richard. Is a question about how is that different from resource group? So for the SAFs environment, right? So Taha asked that, and Richard asks like, how can we can group those under resource groups as well? So how that feature is extra? What is the difference between that?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And so the resource groups is a very sort of common way of organizing your resources, and largely I think it does make sense. I think the challenge is though, as you have like n number of say resource groups or n number of like solutions, how do you start to look across those? Like, do you go one
Mhm.
by one? Do you click into each logic app one by one? And so when we think about integration environment, it's more of creating a hierarchy. And as Divya mentioned, you've got like a few options there, like can be dev, test, prod, UAT, staging, or it could be this is finance, this is marketing, this is operations. And so based on your operational model, there might be sort of different sort of permissions that you provide as well. And so if you're responsible for say production support or you're responsible for marketing support, how do you want to efficiently go ahead and sort of view those resources, manage those resources? And I feel like once we offer the application monitoring, then that's where the value really starts to shine. So hopefully that's answered
Mhm.
that question.
And also across not just multiple logic apps applications. So the click factor minimizes as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's more than logic apps too, right? It could be like logic
Exactly.
apps to API to functions to service bus, and now you're like clicking in each of those resources. Like that's not the optimum experience we're after. So
Mhm. Which I think brings to that question from Rich again, like the monitor we can do with Azure Monitor and Azure Workbox. What we can have extra here.
yeah, great question. And so when we talk about monitor, what we're interested in doing is we're not trying to reinvent that wheel. This, I think, is the power of Azure, where we actually can go ahead and build experiences in conjunction with other teams. And so what we showed at Integrate was how we can take Azure Monitor alerts and actually then bring them into context. And I think that's one of the challenges is that Azure Monitor is a wide sort of scale, big scale like monitoring solution, but it doesn't understand the business context. And that's what we can actually provide by saying like these are the resources that are part of the marketing process or this power outage resource. um, let's now build a monitoring view on top of that and only bring that information into view, because Azure Monitor can basically monitor your entire enterprise.
Thanks, man. Next question. I have two more, and then I think that that's it. I'll have to see if there is any other new one here. One is from M. Velling. Will consumption logic apps be supported at some time point? And that is reflected by Slava Chernenko that's also asking, it will work for consumption logic apps or it's just for standard logic apps?
So at this point, this is a Logic App standard feature. Never say never, but like we are very much prioritizing Logic App standard. And just to sort of give you a little bit of insights into like why standard, like the architecture really lends itself for this. So when you actually go ahead and click the deploy button and you deploy a business process and we create those tracking profiles, we put them into your logic apps. We are actually using your compute. Your compute is actually, we're attaching to those various jobs that are taking place and then emitting the data over to ADX. That model in consumption doesn't work. It doesn't quite work that way. It's a multi-tenant service. And so when this is actually happening, it's happening inside of your logic apps. And the other thing I will say is, at least in preview, like we're not charging anything extra for this, right? You're bringing your own ADX, you're bringing your own compute in the form of your app service plan or your workflow service plan, and as a result, like you're emitting those events. And so it's something we'll continue to listen to feedback on, but at this point we are very much focused on standard.
Cool. And one last question from Richard here. is what happens, how it will handle the logic apps if it's erroring or failed. And I think that question was on the context of business process tracking.
Yeah, no, great question. And this is another area that we are working on for our GA. And so we completely understand sort of the scenario, right, where you've got, I don't like transactions that are in progress. How do you identify when something is like complete and successful, something that is in progress, or something that is complete but failed, and being able to identify what I would call like milestones. And so we're calling this like milestones management, and that is something that is also on our radar and something I would expect to see there for a GA.
All right. I just going through the other questions here. Yeah, so we have any plans to integrate with durable functions?
So that's where we need this feedback. I think it's one of those things where if we use like an SDK approach, or if we use the RESTful API approach, those would be sort of a more of a broader solution to sort of a variety of different technologies. But we definitely are working on like how do we externalize this and make other services, resources being able to participate in this model. So yeah, that's the second time I've heard durable functions in the last week or so. But keep the feedback coming, because we definitely want to make sure we're hitting the largest number of use cases we can.
And the last question, because we're running out of time, Joju Jacobs is asking, will the multiple runs for the same business key be displayed for them? How are we dealing with?
Yeah, no,
that?
we have some internal tracking identifiers as well, and so those don't collide. So like we also get the resubmit question, and so I think there's probably another sort of indicator or an enhancement we can do around that, but we do manage that today. So if I resubmitted transactions for that business process that I ran, you would see it, but you would see it as a separate line item. We do manage like the technical correlation separately, even though the business ID could be the same.
Okay. We have a whole lot of other questions here, so I'll ask you to just jump on chat and starting chat with people after that, Kent. But let's first, thank you very much. You see, for the number of questions, a lot of people are super interested on that. But I think it's now time to change tack and bring our friends from service